The coffee shop encounter. The morning rain drummed against the windows of Corner Cafe as David hurried inside, shaking droplets from his vintage leather jacket. The warm smell of coffee and fresh pastries wrapped around him like a comfortable blanket. He had found the jacket at a thrift store 3 weeks ago, and it had quickly become his favorite piece of clothing. Something about its worn softness and classic style made him feel confident that, as he approached the counter, David noticed the barista behind the register. She was arranging pastries in the display case, her dark hair falling in gentle waves around her shoulders. When she looked up to greet him, her smile froze on her face. Her eyes went wide, fixed on his jacket with an expression of shock that made David's stomach drop. Excuse me," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the cafe's morning chatter. Her name tag read Natalie, and her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of the counter. David followed her gaze down to his jacket, confused. "Is everything okay? Did I spill something on myself?" He checked the leather anxiously, but it looked perfectly clean. Natalie shook her head slowly, still staring. "That jacket. Where did you get it?" Her voice carried a weight that made other customers turn to look. "From a thrift store on Pine Street," David replied, growing more concerned. "Thompson's Vintage. Why? Is there something wrong with it?" The color drained from Natalie's face. She stepped back, one hand covering her mouth. "Thompson's. That's where I donated it 6 months ago." David felt his heart skip. "You donated this jacket?" "It belonged to my brother," she said, her voice cracking. "He died in a motorcycle accident last year. I couldn't bear to keep his things around anymore, so I donated them all to Thompson's." Tears gathered in her eyes as she studied every detail. "Of the jacket. That's his jacket. I would know it anywhere." The cafe seemed to grow quiet around them. David instinctively wanted to take the jacket off immediately, but something in Natalie's expression stopped him. It wasn't anger or accusation he saw there, but a complex mixture of pain and wonder. "I'm so sorry," David said softly. "I had no idea. Would you like me to return it to you?" Natalie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "No, please don't. It's just seeing it again, on someone who looked so much like him." She paused, studying David's face. "You have the same build, the same way of standing. For a moment, I thought ... David understood. The jacket had found its way to someone who could carry on its story. "What was your brother's name?" "Michael," she said, managing a small smile through her tears. "He would have liked you wearing it. He always said clothes should be lived in, not stored away." "Would you like to tell me about him?" David asked gently. "I feel like I should know something about the person whose jacket I'm wearing." Natalie looked surprised by the offer, but after a moment, she nodded. "My shift ends in 20 minutes. Would you mind waiting?" David ordered his coffee and found a table by the window. As he watched Natalie work, he noticed how she glanced at the jacket periodically, her expression shifting from sadness to something that might have been acceptance. When her replacement arrived, she joined him at his table, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Michael was 3 years older than me," she began, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. "He was the kind of person who collected strays, people, animals, old motorcycles. He said everything deserved a second chance." As Natalie spoke about her brother, David felt a strange connection forming, not just to the jacket, but to the woman sharing her memories with a stranger who happened to be wearing a piece of her past. Shared memories over the next hour, Natalie painted a picture of Michael that made David wish he had known the man. She told him about Michael's love for late-night motorcycle rides, his collection of vintage band T-shirts, and his habit of leaving encouraging notes in library books for the next reader to find. "He bought that jacket when he turned 18, Natalie said, gesturing toward what David was wearing. "Saved up for months working at a pizza place. Said it made him feel like a character from one of those old movies he loved. David ran his hand over the jacket's sleeve. It does have that timeless quality. I felt it the moment I put it on. He wore it everywhere, Natalie continued. To concerts, on dates, to job interviews. Mom used to joke that he was going to be buried in that thing. Her smile faltered. We almost did bury him in it, but I couldn't bear the thought of it being underground forever. So you kept it for a year before donating it. Natalie nodded. I tried wearing it once, but it just made me miss him more. Everything in his apartment reminded me that he was gone. The social worker said I needed to process my grief, not live in it. David leaned forward. Was donating his things helpful? I thought it would be, she admitted. For a few months, it was easier not seeing his things every day. But then I started regretting it. I wished I had kept something, anything, that still carried his presence. And now you're seeing it again. On someone who could be his younger brother, Natalie said, studying David's face again. It's the strangest thing. You even gesture like he did when you talk. David felt a warmth spreading through his chest. Maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe the jacket chose me for a reason. Natalie tilted her head. You believe in things like that? I didn't used to, David said honestly. But since I started wearing this jacket, my life has been different. I've been more confident, made better decisions. I even started talking to people more, which is how we're having this conversation. Right now. Michael would say the jacket has good energy, Natalie said with a laugh. He believed objects could hold on to the love and experiences of their owners. What else would he say about this situation? Natalie considered the question carefully. He would probably say that you're meant to have it, but that you should know its history. Michael believed in honoring the past while moving forward. David felt an idea forming. Would you be willing to tell me more about him? Not just today, but maybe we could meet again. I'd like to understand the person whose footsteps I'm following. You really want to know about my dead brother? Natalie asked, surprised. I want to know about the man whose jacket is helping me become a better version of myself, David replied. And I think you might need to remember the good parts of having him in your life, not just the pain of losing him. Natalie stared at him for a long moment. You know what? Michael would have really liked you. As they exchanged phone numbers, David realized that finding this jacket had led him to something he hadn't expected, a connection that felt deeper than mere coincidence. Growing connection 3 days later, David met Natalie at Riverside Park, the place she said Michael used to go when he needed to think. She had brought a photo album and seemed more relaxed than she had in the cafe. I spent yesterday going through these, she said, settling beside him on a bench overlooking the water. I haven't looked at them since the funeral. David studied the photos as she turned the pages. Michael had been a handsome man with an easy smile and kind eyes. In many of the pictures, he was wearing the jacket David now owned. This was his 21st birthday, Natalie said, pointing to a photo of Michael blowing out candles on a cake. He insisted on wearing the jacket, even though Mom said it wasn't appropriate for a family dinner. He looks happy, David observed. He was. Michael had this way of finding joy in small things. He used to say that happiness wasn't about big moments, but about appreciating the ordinary ones. As they walked through the park, Natalie shared more stories. She told him about Michael's failed attempts at cooking, his secret talent for singing, and his dream of opening a motorcycle repair shop. He was saving money for it when he died, she said quietly. Had almost enough for the down payment on a small garage space. What happened to the money? It's still sitting in his savings account. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. It felt like giving up on his dreams completely. David stopped walking. What if we didn't give up on them? Natalie looked confused. What do you mean? What if we found a way to honor his dream? Maybe not exactly as he planned it, but in a way that would make him proud. David, you didn't even know him. But I'm getting to know him through you. Through this jacket. Through the impact he had on people's lives. Sometimes strangers can see possibilities that are too painful for family to consider. They sat by the lake as the sun began to set. Natalie was quiet for a long time, watching the water ripple in the evening breeze. He would have liked having someone carry on his story, she finally said. Michael believed in second chances, remember? For people and for dreams? Especially for dreams. Natalie turned to face him. David, can I ask you something personal? Of course. What were you doing with your life before you found that jacket? David thought about it. Drifting, mostly. Working a job I didn't care about. Spending weekends alone watching movies. I wasn't really living, just existing. And now? Now, I feel like I have purpose. Like maybe I'm meant to be more than I was. He looked down at the jacket. It sounds crazy, but wearing this makes me feel connected to something bigger than myself. Natalie smiled. That doesn't sound crazy at all. That sounds exactly like something Michael would have wanted his jacket to do for someone. As they prepared to leave the park, David felt something shifting between them. What had started as a chance encounter was becoming something deeper, a friendship built on shared purpose and an unexpected understanding. Natalie, he said as they reached their cars, would you like to have dinner sometime? Not as strangers connected by a jacket, but as U.S.? She looked surprised and thoughtful. Are you asking me on a date? I'm asking if you'd like to get to know the person Michael's jacket chose. Will I get to know the person who loved him enough to let him go? Natalie considered this, then smiled. I think Michael would approve of that plan. Building something new 2 months later, David and Natalie had fallen into a comfortable routine of evening walks and weekend coffee dates. Their relationship had grown naturally from shared stories to genuine affection, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. On a Saturday morning, David arrived at Natalie's apartment with coffee and pastries from Corner Cafe. She had been promoted to assistant manager, and he loved seeing how her confidence had grown. I have an idea I want to run by you, he said as they settled on her couch. Another one of your Michael-inspired plans? She asked with amusement. Actually, yes, but this one's bigger. David pulled out a folder he had been carrying. I've been researching motorcycle repair shops in the city, looking at what made them successful and what made them fail. Natalie raised an eyebrow. David, you don't know anything about motorcycles. But I know about business, and I know about following through on dreams. What if we used Michael's savings as seed money for a scholarship fund? A scholarship fund? For young people who want to learn motorcycle repair but can't afford technical school. We could partner with local shops, maybe even start a mentorship program. David opened the folder, revealing pages of research and calculations. Michael wanted to help people, right? This way, his dream doesn't die with him. It multiplies. Natalie stared at the papers, tears forming in her eyes. You've really thought this through. I've been thinking about it since that day in the park. Michael believed in second chances. What if we give second chances to kids who need them? But why would you want to do this? It's not your money, not your brother. David set the folder aside and took her hands. Natalie, these past 2 months have changed my life. Not just because of the jacket, but because of you, because of learning about Michael, because of understanding what it means to live with purpose. And what purpose is that? Continuing good stories instead of letting them end. Michael's story doesn't have to end with his death. It can continue through the people we help, the chances we give, the love we share. Natalie was quiet for a long time, studying the research David had compiled. Finally, she looked up at him. There's something I need to tell you. David felt his heart skip. "What is it?" "I've been falling in love with you," she said simply. "And it scares me because I don't know if you're falling in love with me or with the idea of being connected to Michael." David felt the weight of her honesty. It was a fair question, one he had been asking himself. "Can I tell you what I think?" She nodded. "I think Michael's jacket brought us together, but that's where his part of our story ends. Everything that's happened between us, the conversations, the laughter, the way you make me want to be better, that's all us. How can you be sure?" David stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city below. "Because when I think about our future, I don't see Michael's shadow. I see you and me building something entirely new. The scholarship fund isn't about replacing Michael or living his life. It's about taking the best parts of what he believed in and making them our own." Natalie joined him at the window. "What if we fail? Then we'll have failed trying to do something meaningful. Michael would respect that." She leaned against him, and David wrapped his arms around her. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's do it. Let's build something beautiful together." As they stood, there planning their future, David realized that the jacket had given him more than confidence. It had led him to love, purpose, and the understanding that the best way to honor the past was to create a meaningful future. A new beginning 1 year later. David stood in front of a small storefront with a Michael's Second Chances Motorcycle Scholarship Foundation sign hanging above the door. Natalie was beside him, holding a pair of golden scissors for the ribbon cutting ceremony. The past year had been a whirlwind of paperwork, fundraising, and partnership building. They had successfully established the scholarship fund and partnered with 3 local technical schools and 5 motorcycle repair shops. Their first class of scholarship recipients would begin their training the following week. "Are you nervous?" Natalie asked, adjusting his tie. He was still wearing Michael's jacket, but now it felt like it belonged to him, while still honoring its previous owner. "Terrified," David admitted, but the good kind of terrified. A small crowd had gathered for the ceremony. Some were potential scholarship recipients. Others were local business owners who had agreed to provide mentorship opportunities. Natalie's mother was there, having driven in from Portland specifically for this event. "Before we cut this ribbon," Natalie said to the crowd, "I want to tell you about my brother Michael. He believed that everyone deserved a second chance to pursue their dreams. He never got to open his own motorcycle shop, but through this foundation, his dream will live on in all the young people we're able to help." David took the microphone. "I never met Michael, but I've been wearing his jacket for over a year now. It taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is continue a good story rather than start a new one. Today, we're not just opening a foundation. We're continuing Michael's story of believing in people and giving them the tools to succeed." As they cut the ribbon together, David felt a profound sense of completion. The jacket that had brought them together had led to something larger than either of them could have imagined. After the ceremony, as they were cleaning up, Natalie pulled David aside. "I have something for you," she said, handing him a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple silver chain with a small motorcycle charm. "It was Michael's," she explained. "He wore it under his shirt. I thought, if you're going to carry on his legacy, you should have something that was really his." David fastened the chain around his neck. "Thank you. This means everything to me." "There's something else," Natalie said, looking nervous. "These past months, working together, building this dream, I've realized something." "What's that?" "I'm not just in love with you, David. I'm in love with the life we're building together. The way you honor Michael's memory while making our own path. The way you turned a chance encounter into something meaningful." David pulled her close. "I love you too, Natalie. Not because of a jacket or a coincidence, but because you're brave enough to let love grow from loss." As the sun set over their new foundation, David reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A simple thrift store purchase had led to love, purpose, and the chance to impact countless lives. Michael's jacket had done its job. It had connected two people who needed each other and helped them build something beautiful together. The jacket still hung in David's closet, but now it shared space with the life he and Natalie were creating. Sometimes the best way to honor the past is to use it as the foundation for an even better future. And in the quiet moments when David wore the jacket and Natalie leaned against him, they both felt Michael's approval, not as a ghost from the past, but as a blessing on the love and purpose they had found together.